You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and man, we have another show lined up for y'all. Today, man, we have a true honor guest today, Brandon Day. He went from football champ to Sports Illustrated cover star to battling chronic pain and mental health struggles after the game ended. But he didn't stop there. Instead of tapping out, he went above and beyond, and he dove right into neuroscience. He's the founder of NeuroFlow method, and we're going to explore everything that he's doing to help his clients, because it's not just athletes. Anybody who is a high-performing professional, from a CEO to a former athlete to an everyday person just on the grind trying to make things happen, he is going to share with us all the amazing things that he's been able to find out how to help these people eliminate pain and unlock top peak performance. From this day forward, I think you got to understand just how powerful storytelling is, because this guy's story is something that you are definitely going to appreciate. So without further ado, Brandon Day, I want to say thank you for being on the show, man. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing better after that amazing introduction. Thank you.
I had to land the plane because I saw the lights coming on, like, whoa, man, we already in 2 minutes in this, so we had to get going. But I know I had to speed up a little bit, but kind of take us back to your amazing career being a football star, because you were a powerhouse at the program at Carroll College with national titles. After that came Sports Illustrated covers, the whole nine. What was it like being a top-tier athlete?
It was incredible. The wild thing about the whole story is that, most people that are going to listen to this are going to go, like, Carroll College? What is that? I've never heard of that before. And probably for good reason, because, it was an NAIA school above about 1,100 students. The football team itself made up about 10% of the population. A small town in Montana, where I'm from. And so we weren't out there for the big name and lights, the NIL money, which back then that was not a thing, but it wasn't really about the glory, the glitz, and everything out like that. It was just, playing football with your friends. And you're right, we did have a pretty amazing group of teams that came through there. In 10 years, I think they won 6 or 7 national championships. I'm not exactly sure, but it was quite a dynasty there for a while. And when I played there, we got to play in 3 of them. We won 2 of them. I was an All-American. My junior year, a picture taken of me at the national championship made its way to the cover of Sports Illustrated. Again, wild thing that nobody would have ever dreamed that could have happened at that level. But it did, right? And there's a lot to be said about synchronicity and about being in the right place at the right time, and just continuing to follow your passions and your dreams, and you just never know, right? But the level of athleticism at that time, and to this day, it's shrinking in the differences between the levels of play. I like to say that, like, the biggest differences between a D1 program, between like the FCS, FBS, D2, D3, and the NCAA, and then the NAIA, which is just a separate organization, mostly made up of private schools around the country. There's a lot of them. You don't hear of them as much because they don't have big endowments and they don't have a ton of huge student populations. But the level of competition is right up there, right? We may be a little bit shorter, maybe just a pinch slower, but the competition is there and it's ripe, and that's where I believe that my time there and anybody that's playing at the collegiate level and beyond, you have a certain mindset that goes with that, and within all of that, my story kind of followed through all of that, and then through the Sports Illustrated, sometimes I say the brightest light can create the darkest shadow. And for me, it was a lot of the mental health struggles and insecurities that surfaced out of that experience. They were all there already, right? It just kind of brought that out of me. And it was really hard for a bit to go from, a All-American athlete, captain of the team, Sports Illustrated, to the bottom rung of the ladder, to being lost and not knowing what to do with my life after athletics, and feeling like I lost a big chunk of my identity in all of that. And that, along with, the big peak that had happened, led to a pretty significant fall.
When people are hearing you talk, they're like, man, I never seen this cover. Well, we got you. It's a cover just you've never seen it before. But I'm glad you told that, because for those who are watching us on YouTube, a lot of times we don't appreciate what athletes bring to the table. I mean, kind of touch on just the process of maintaining that status at that time, because it brought great results. You became a champion. You got on the cover on what people will say, wow, that's something that most people dream about doing. So kind of take us back some insight. What was it truly like in the life of Brandon in prime?
Yeah, and I give all that to our coaching staff. My head coach, a guy named Mike Van Diest, and his staff, they were so good at recruiting. And one thing that he told me when I coached after I got done playing, because I had an extra year in school, because I played as a true freshman. When I got done, I wanted to hang around. I didn't want to leave the game. So I ended up coaching, and, being at the bottom rung of that ladder and going through the paces as a young coach, he taught me a lot. And one thing he said to me that stuck with me forever is that they recruited character over talent all day long. He was more interested in the character of the young man that he was bringing onto that team and how that character was going to mesh with everybody else that was already there. Of course, talent is still important, right? But work ethic and character were much more important. And that right there, I believe, above all things, was what led us to become such a cohesive unit and rely on each other and really go to bat for each other and win all those games. And then, it created a culture of winning. And when you're winning, you want to keep winning. And you kind of start to expect that. And there is a lot to be said there too, about creating that culture. And then when the snowball starts rolling downhill and you get momentum, you just keep rolling, and remaining humble through it all, which he was so good at. Every single week was a battle, and it was a test. And we never overlooked a team. Didn't matter what their record was. Didn't matter if they had not won a game in 3 years and they were clearly not up to the task. Because here's the thing about when you're on top, is that everyone will elevate their game to try to knock off the big dog, right? So we knew that. And that was ingrained in us every single day. And so we worked harder than everybody. That was the whole thing. You never take the foot off the gas. And the one time that, I won't speak for everybody, but the one time that I did was the last game I ever played in a national championship. And there was a switch that happened in my brain that I knew at the time that we were going to lose that game, because I started, for many, many reasons, insecurities, all that stuff. I started playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And that mindset shift ruined me for that game. And I put a lot of blame on myself as the captain for losing that game. There's a million other things. And, I've done my therapy and processed all that. But character, recruiting on character, staying humble, and always outworking your competition, you can set yourself up for the opportunity to win. Doesn't guarantee anything, but those three things were so impactful on me that I'll never forget them.
That's great insight. I know that wasn't on my script, but I just feel like to ad-lib a little bit and do some improv because I think that really sets the tone for the rest of the interview. When you look, I want to kind of highlight what you said earlier in the interview. You said something very profound. Sometimes the brightest light can cast the darkest shadows. Wow. Okay. Snap fingers. That's pretty cool. I never heard it put it that way. And, that's pretty deep because I think, that can mean so many different ways to so many different people. But when I see that and hear you say it, I think like a movie going off in my head, like, wow, that sounds like someone who's been through so much, just trying to carry the weight of success. Like you're at the top, like you're just trying to sustain, how far can you carry this thing? But when you say the brightest light can cast the darkest shadows, like I think that hits home for a lot of people watching, especially athletes out there who can relate to the daily grind, that it takes to be a very professional top player, not just an average Joe who just kind of does the bare minimum. So that leads to this question. Outside the touchdowns and the big games, what do you believe position you to start learning more about neuroscience and getting knee deep into research? Because it's not like what you're doing right now is like something you just go off the cuff because you feel good. It's something that you really study. So what was that process looking like for you to research?
It was a selfish motivation at first, and I think still in some respects. I became obsessed a few years after I got done playing, after I went through this period of just kind of a spiral downward that everything I mentioned earlier, losing that identity. And then along with that, a lot of chronic physical pain from playing a pretty violent sport. Let's be honest, for a while, you're getting in a car accident every day, just smashing against people much, much bigger than you at very fast speeds. So I was left with some injuries, and they kind of went away after a while after I took a break from football and all that ended. But quickly they started to come back. And with that, the mental health struggles. And I remember reaching a point a few years after I was done living in LA, and I woke up on this deflated air mattress as I was trying to make it in the film industry. And that was just kind of, an opportunity that came about that I didn't want to let go because it seemed unique and fun. And I think a part of me was like performance arts. I want to stay in the spotlight, right? That's what I knew best. And so I wanted to kind of chase that. And it was an amazing experience, but I wasn't really well prepared for it. And so it didn't really help with the chronic pain and the mental health issues that I was dealing with. In some ways, it kind of exacerbated them. Anyway, I wake up on this mattress and I think to myself, I don't have enough money for a pack of cigarettes. And in that moment, I really started to think about my life and where I was, where I had been, where I was at this moment, and what the heck am I doing and where am I going? I felt so lost in that moment, and I had some pretty dark thoughts. And at that moment, I decided to change things. And so I knew that I had to deal with this chronic physical pain that I was experiencing. My neck, my back, my knees, ankles. I mean, I was lucky enough to never miss a down from injury, but I had a lot of pain left over. Within that, I also was realizing that my brain was I didn't know how to put it into words, but I knew my brain was not functioning well. Yeah, there was substance abuse. Yes, there was mental health issues, but I felt like on a neurobiological level, there's something wrong with my brain. I couldn't put it into words. A few years later, this movie came out called Concussion with Will Smith. I don't know if you remember that one, but it kind of blew open the doors on this thing called CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I saw that, I was convinced I got CTE. And if I don't take care of this or do something about it, I'm going to end up like a Junior Seau. And I'm going to, be so out of my mind and so twisted in the brain and like all these plaque building up and all this damage that I've accrued over time that I'm going to end up taking my own life and I won't even know. Like, you know, it's scared the living daylights out of me. So I was at that time trying to start to fix my body in all the ways that I knew how to do. I was a pre-physical therapy major, so I'm like, all right, let's go back. I got a job as a personal trainer. I started doing corrective exercise. I did all the physical therapy, the chiropractic, and these things helped temporarily, but the chronic pain kept coming back, and I was still dealing with this brain issue where things were starting to change, and I didn't like it. So that movie comes out, I'm convinced I have CTE, and I start diving into all of the neuroscience and research that I can get my hands on. I just became obsessed with learning how to fix my brain and what I could do. And I tried all sorts of different methods, neurofeedback, meditation, biofeedback, you know, the devices, all the cool tools and tricks. And again, somewhat okay results. Things started to move the needle a little bit, but I was still having all this chronic pain, mental health issues. And so fast forward a few years, and I discovered two things in my journey that really blew open the doors for me in my health, my brain health, and my body and chronic pain. And it's why I teach what I teach now. And those things are flow states I found first through a book called The Rise of Superman by a guy named Stephen Kotler. Incredible book about action adventure sport athletes and how flow states are this neurobiological phenomenon, this altered state of consciousness where we feel and perform our best. Light bulb moment. I was like, that's what I lost. That's what I had access to through this sport that I was very good at. And it gave me so much enjoyment and confidence and the access to that state of consciousness, which, by the way, neurobiologically is incredibly profound in the enjoyment that it creates, in the mental health benefits that come out of it. Then when you lose access to it, it's like losing access to good food. It's like, it's like starving your brain of good food, kind of. So that was number one. So I started to dedicate my life to finding flow in all the ways that I can. Spoiler alert, you can find it in almost anything that you do, if the conditions are right. So I started doing that. And then a couple years later, I stumbled into the work of a company called Next Level Neuro in Phoenix here, near where I live. And they were just starting their inaugural mentorship. First group of students they were taking in, coaches, doctors, chiropractors, PTs, anybody that wanted to use applied neurology, or what they call neurotraining, to help to train the nervous system and brain intentionally through all of the systems of the body. That was a huge moment that within a few weeks of learning the methods of neurotraining and how to actually assess and train my brain intentionally with the body. Again, we're not using gadgets, we're not using external anything, like through your eyes, through your vestibular system, through your breath, with a neurological foundation. Within 3 weeks, chronic pain of, at this point, about 20 years, gone. All gone. Miracle, right? I'm thinking, what? What happened? This can't be real, right? Where's the other shoe's got to drop somewhere. And it didn't. And it just continued to get better and better. And my brain became clearer and clearer. My mental health started getting better and better. My physical pain gone. My training, my athletic performance started getting better and better and better at almost like almost exponential rates. Like I've been putting in work for years and years and years and just like hitting plateaus and hitting walls and still in pain. And then boom, it seemed like in an instant when I started working with my brain intentionally and focusing more on the process, which is focusing on finding flow in the things that I do. It blew the doors open. So that's why I became just obsessed with these two worlds and trying to bring them together into a method and a protocol that I can take people through that will take them from that like pain-ridden, like loss of identity, loss of purpose, kind of just lost thing that athletes often experience, to, you know, that peak performance, whether that's athletic performance, cognitive performance, doesn't really matter, because when flow's the goal, then the outcome takes care of itself. So that's kind of the long-winded version.
That's great. I mean, everything you're saying is building momentum and everything we're discussing in the show. When you think about your method, how it blends brain-based drills, movement training, and nutrition, how does this fusion create long-term change rather than short-term relief?
That's a great question. And there's this two ways that we talk about how the nervous system works. First of all, the nervous system is the governing system of all of the systems, and the brain controls everything. So everything that you and I are, everything that we have become, everything that we will become is a result of brain function. You want your muscles to get bigger, your brain and nervous system has to tell your muscles to grow, right? Yes, you have to nourish them with the right nutrition and all that, but it takes the nervous system to either allow peak performance or to govern and block peak performance because of perceived threat from the environment. So when we talk about nervous system change, there's neuroplasticity, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right? The ability for the brain to change. It's plastic in nature. Neuroplasticity is how all of this happens. Now, there are kind of two types that we talk about. And in neurotraining, we can get an immediate functional change in your nervous system, which means I could, have you test a range of motion. And I could give you a simple input like a visual drill or maybe a head shake vestibular input, and that shoulder can go further up. That's an immediate functional change. That's great. That's where neurotrainers sometimes get called like wizards. It seems like magic. Like how did that happen, right? Oftentimes that's going to come back though, because the threat is still there that your brain is perceiving from somewhere that is creating the tension. Tension is always there to protect you. Pain is also there for your protection. Your lower back hurts and it's tight, possibly because your vestibular system is telling your brain that, hey, we're a little bit off and I don't exactly know where I'm at relative to gravity because you took all those hits to the head for so many years. So I'm going to lock down your back so you don't move so much, or you widen your stance so you're more balanced, because what I don't want is you to fall over, hit your head and die. This is all about survival at a very, very fundamental level. So we can make a functional change in the moment. I can make your range of motion better by giving you a good input that your brain says, oh, that's nice. I know where I'm at. I can sense things better. My perception of threat has gone down a little bit, so I'll free it up. I'll take my foot off the brake a little bit. But it'll come back until that threat is dealt with frequency, repetition, and intensity. Just like you train a muscle, right? I can make my biceps bigger by doing a bunch of curls right now, right? I can get that pump, and it will look bigger. That's the great thing about weightlifting and why we love it. We love the pump because it feels good and our muscles look bigger in the mirror. But then it goes back. It takes repetition in order for it to actually change the structure. And that's the long-term neuroplastic change that we need. And so when we know that, then there's two different types, like quick functional change, longer neuroplastic change. Then it's just about getting the right inputs to remove the threats and then hammering them with repetition and intensity. So if I know that vestibular system or that visual system is a contributing threat, and that's why you're having your neck pain or you got that frozen shoulder, and we can change it in the moment, okay, now you need to go do that. Just like everything else in the world, you need repetition. And if you can add some intensity to it, it'll change faster. But there's always going to be a little bit of change. The cool thing about neurotraining and the nervous system is that it changes faster than any other system of your body. Rarely we can have a change that happens in a moment that sticks, like it did for me. It's a concept called opposing joints, but I had neck pain for many years. And there were 2 drills that I did. One was called a diaphragm stretch that really activated the full diaphragm and all the muscles of exhalation, which to me, in me, were lacking some activation. So that one was great. And then this concept of opposing joints. So the opposing joints of the cervical spine is the sacrum and the pelvis, just like the opposing joint of the elbow is the opposite knee. And it works through spinal cord reflexes and how our gait mechanics work and transmit force. All that aside, if you go to the opposing joint, you can often get a pretty good amount of pain relief. In my experience, up to 40 to 50% pain relief just right there in the moment. For me, and I've seen this happen a few times, we did that opposing joint and that neck pain was gone. And it didn't come back for almost 2 weeks. And now it happens maybe once or twice a month where I sleep wrong or it's usually related to my eyes, too much bad, quote unquote, bad light, lots of blue light, lots of screen time, and not much relaxation for my eyes, whatever. Then that pain will start to come back. It's a harbinger, right? It's a, hey, pay attention, right? I need you to change something here. Then it'll come back, but then whoosh, I can fix it real quick because I understand where the threat's coming from and I have the tools to directly affect the brain and its outputs.
Once again, you listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Brandon Day, talking about NeuroFlow. I mean, if you want to know what he does, I'm telling you, you want to check out what he does. We're going to have a link in the show notes where you can check out what he's offering for not just athletes, but high performers. I want to say real quick, because I can believe how time just flew by, but the fact that you have so much knowledge on this and you were a top performing athlete, I can only imagine you must have a waiting list. Like, there's no way, like, more people need to know about this if that's not the case, because, wow, like, you have so much information that I can tell that you're passionate about, because when you speak, you're almost like in the flow state. You know what I'm saying? It's not even boring. It's like, wow, I'm watching like a documentary, like live. So
I appreciate that.
My question that wrap this up would be, if there are former athletes or active current athletes out there, do you work with people one-on-one outside of what you do with your program? And if so, how can they start that process with you?
Yeah, I work with people one-on-one, and that's just so everybody out there knows, there's a little bit of rebranding going on. I will be changing a little bit from NeuroFlow to Evolved Athlete, really kind of focusing even more on athletes and really the athletic mindset. That's what I'm after, is that mindset. So anyway, I want to plug that in there just in case somebody comes across and they're like, what happened to NeuroFlow? I don't find it. But anyway, in that Evolved Athlete, I work one-on-one through what I call the Evolved Athlete Method. And it's like a 12-week program where we go from where you're at to peak performance, and whatever that means for you. And using the concepts and the tools of neurotraining, we can really do that with really anybody. So that's great. And I love working people with one-on-one. And yeah, there's a wait list sometimes because I can't get to everybody. And that's why I have the group program, the Evolved Athlete Collective, and much, more accessible for a lot of people. And it's still the same method that I take my one-on-one clients through. It's just kind of at your own pace, but I show up and coach in there to the group, 3 times a week, because like you so nicely said, like, I'm super passionate about that. And I really hope that this comes across because I've lived it. I've been there and it sucks. Chronic pain is not fun. And even less fun is chronic pain with a loss of identity and just feeling lost and with purposeless in the world. And that's a really scary place to be. I don't want anybody to ever have to be in that situation. So I want to get this out there to as many people as I can, at any level of, commitment. So you can find me on Instagram at I Am Brandon Day, and then the communities I have are hosted on the platform called School, which is an amazing platform. I love that platform. And yeah, I mean, you hit me up anytime, like wherever you can find me. I'm pretty accessible at this point, so take advantage.
My last curveball question off the cuff will be thinking about athletes right now. I mean, there's so much pressure. I mean, I'm sure there's pressure when you were after back in the day too, but when you think about everything that's going on with social media platforms and all these different distractions, coaches do a great job shielding them, and they do a great job themselves. But you've been there. You've been on the cover, if you will. You had the championship games, so you know what it feels like to work so hard over the years to finally hit that peak that a lot of people don't even have the opportunity to experience. Yeah. What would you say to today's athletes as far as how they can be better aware with their bodies, their health, and their mental health as they continue to strive for their goals and dreams in their athletic world?
Yeah, such a good question, because, we didn't have social media in my day. I was done with football in 2009. Instagram didn't start till 2010. We had Facebook, right, and MySpace. So it was a very, very different world, and that is good and bad. I mean, the amount of information out there, and good information, is everywhere, but there's just as much bad information, and there's just as many rabbit holes you can go down that will suck you in and just suck your mental health with it. And so chasing dopamine is a real problem. And I think you're right. A lot of coaches do a good job, and there's a lot of players that I've worked with at the collegiate level, even below and above, that do a good job regulating themselves, right, in that way. But the biggest thing I would tell any of those guys and gals is you've got to just focus on the process, not the outcome. I talk about it in terms of flow states. If you can find flow in your workouts, in your practices, then the outcome, the game, is going to take care of itself. That's all you can do. Show up and be your best, find flow in those times. Not only is the outcome going to take care of itself, but you're going to have fun. And what do we play sports for anyway? Is to have fun. So if you can do that, then you might win some, you might lose some. You might get a chance to play in a championship. You might not. But I guarantee you, when it's all said and done and you have to make that transition, which we all have to do sooner or later, you will have enjoyed yourself and you won't regret a thing.
Well, with that being said, this whole interview was fun. I had a good time just kind of sitting and eating my imaginary popcorn, if you will. It was like watching a movie. So I appreciate that. So I'm sure athletes, former and current, will definitely appreciate what you just brought to the table. So if you're watching us online on Refocused Radio, go to our website, refocusradio.com. And like we always say, man, Brandon, we got to have you on in the future, man, because I think you're probably just getting started. There needs to be like a documentary on you or something. I don't know what's going on. Somebody, a film director, need a call or something, because I think you're just scratching the surface of what you can really put out there. So like we always say, man, appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.